What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is happening, everybody? Here's what I'm doing. I'm going to do a little Middlekauff mailbag. I'm recording this mailbag before the conference championship games. I just have so many questions from the people out there at John Middlekauff, easiest way to get involved in the thing called the mailbag. I thought let's just bang out some questions. So the context of these games, anything related to any of those players, obviously will not be factored in here because I think Eddie, who asked this question about Jalen Hurts and Dak, gives some context here. Though Dak, I mean, this is Jalen's second conference championship game. Dak obviously never been past the second round, but now he's got a new coach. We'll get into that as the week goes on, I'm sure. But my buddies call me a Jalen Hurts meat writer. I think that means penis. But can you settle our debate once and for all? Is Hurts better than Dak? Question for the mailbag. Well, I think when you look at Jalen and when you look at Dak, they're completely different players. I mean, Dak in 2025, moving forward, and really he's been this way since he shattered his ankle, is not some dynamic athlete playmaker. He's a pocket quarterback. And as a pocket quarterback, is he better than Jalen Hurts? 100%. Now, Jalen, when he's healthy, is a much more dynamic runner. Jalen can turn into a running back, when he's right, in terms of he's not like super fast like Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels, but his instincts as a runner are elite. Angles, just movement in space. And to me, throwing on the run, deep throwing on the run is something Jalen does really, really well. What's up, John? Got a question for you. I was listening the other day. I mean, I probably wouldn't really want either, but I think neither team would probably trade their guy for the other. I was listening the other day, maybe the Eagles, I don't know. I was listening the other day. I heard you say that it has never been easier to play quarterback in the NFL. With that being the case, why do you think we don't see guys getting up there in the higher 40s for TD passes as much as we did with guys like Breeze, Brady, Manning, Packers, AR-12? You would think that especially with the added game that Peyton's record would have been broken by now. Well, I think it's twofold. One, I do think it's objectively a fact. It's never been easier. You are protected at much higher rates. I saw someone put out a reel of Tom Brady, making fun. It was like a real meme making fun of Patrick Mahomes and all the hits he takes and the flags he gets. I mean, Tom in the 2000s used to get, oh my, it's crazy the violence in the NFL 15, 20 years ago. It's not even comparable to now in terms of hitting the quarterback. It was unflagged. It was called football. The other thing 100% you can get away with now are the flags, throwing the ball down the field, right? They used to be called hospital balls. Now they're just called minimum 15-yard penalties. But just because it's easier to play quarterback doesn't mean that guys are better at playing quarterback. Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, I would say Herbert, the top quarterbacks could have played in any era. But some of these guys, I think it's more than questionable how good they would have been way back in the day. I think Jalen's a good example. It was hard to play like he plays. He just takes a lot of hits. You can't throw from within the pocket, run all the time. You're going to get crushed. Lamar is such an elite athlete that he can avoid some of it. But some of these quarterbacks, is he as good as Roethlisberger was in his prime or Phillip Rivers? It's just a different game. So it's hard like to even compare eras because it's completely different. It is just completely different. So I think, Mahomes has had seasons where he's thrown for a lot of touchdown passes with Tyreek Hill. I think, listen, you throw for 35, 40 touchdowns, it's a lot. If we have a ton of quarterbacks throwing for 45, 50 touchdowns, we got a problem because we should be able to play some defense. Mailbag. Draft / the Jets, who actually was that Saturday, hired a general manager that I'll be honest, had never heard of. But I mean, there are a lot of guys in the NFL I've never heard of, but Congrats on the Jets. They got their coach, they got their GM. I got no dog in the fight, but I'm surprised we've never heard anything about. God, my phone has been acting weird here. It copied and pasted, and I couldn't unclick it. I'm surprised we've never heard anything of Jordan Travis's contingency plan for when Rodgers leaves the Jets. Didn't he fall to the third round because of his injury at Florida State? Seems like a forgotten name who was one of the better college quarterbacks during a 14 playoff before getting hurt in the last game. Well, I think he went later than the. I could be mistaken, but Jordan Travis got drafted in the fifth round. So he's a fifth round pick who had a major leg injury in 2023. So I think there are questions about. I'm trying to find what the injury was. So he was fighting for extra yards, but a defender used the hip drop tackle, left leg, causing his ankle to be twisted. An air cast play, so it's carted off. It was announced that he had season-ending college football. Yeah, I don't know if there was ligament damage. I remember it being pretty bad. Now, when Jordan Travis was healthy, I liked the player. Like he was a solid player, but I never viewed him as an NFL starting quarterback. Good athlete, average arm. Before he got injured, he had 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He was doing a good job, obviously not turning the ball over. The previous year for Florida State, when they went 10-3, 24-5, I always viewed him as like a solid player, a guy that could compete to be a backup in the NFL, but I didn't see NFL starter. Now, if he was healthy, which he might not have been, I guess I would have played him for the last couple weeks. They clearly did not. They went with Rodgers. Now, maybe it's because Rodgers might retire, so give him just some games. But overall, I don't know, man. I don't see it. Now, I'm not acting like I'm Bill Walsh here, but in my eyes, and I watched a lot of Florida State because my guy I call him D Ray, but Derek Ray was the GM. Obviously, terrible season. I mean, coming off a rough season, had him on the pod, did not go well. Previous 2 years though, 10-3, and with Jordan Travis at quarterback, 10-3, 11-0. I don't know. I don't see it. I can't imagine that the Texans let Slowick go. That's another story. I mean, the amount of stories that dropped Friday night was we will get into. I'm not going to get in depth about my take on Brian Schottenheimer, but Slowick and Brian Schottenheimer hired, Slowick fired Friday afternoon. Friday, I mean, Schottenheimer was hired Friday night. Is the ultimate like we don't want the PR on this. We want no part of this. The Slowick thing, I was in a car. So he may well have just been announced by the time you read this. My 2 cents worth. What was the Texans' biggest offensive problem this year? The porous O-line, which the O-line coach has the best, most consistent protection record. Aaron Kramer. Check out his history. All the best, David. I was in the car, I think, when this got announced on Friday afternoon. And I don't know if I haven't seen this CJ quote, so I'm not trying to push disinformation here, but did he say something or did a story leak about CJ Stroud not loving the scheme or not being on the same page with Slowick? You don't fire the players. You're clearly not going to fire CJ Stroud, but anytime you get sacked a million times, it's going to be a problem. And if you're not winning at the highest level when your star quarterback is getting destroyed, pressure gets put on the offensive coordinator. And you look back, Bruce Arians, they won the Super Bowl in Pittsburgh. They won a Super Bowl in Pittsburgh. But the Rooney family, Mike Tomlin, didn't like how often Roethlisberger got hit and how often they passed the ball. And I think when you look at Slowick, I don't know if he lost his mojo, if it's as simple as his line just played really poorly, but his quarterback was getting destroyed. And like ultimately, his personnel is his personnel, so it's on him to kind of adapt, and he clearly could not. So I'm not acting like he deserved to get fired, but it was not going well. And it was not going well at all when it comes to, let's face it, they have some fantastic pieces in that organization. No one is more important than the quarterback. When the quarterback is getting destroyed, you're going to be under the gun. Even if he's been the offensive coordinator the last 2 years. They've won 2 playoff games, and that was D'Amico's guy. So I think it's fair to say that this was quarterback owner. I mean, unless D'Amico and Slowick have kind of fallen out of favor. Little surprised because, I mean, it's announced on Friday. They had lost. When did they lose? Who'd they lose to? I'm trying to think. They lost to Chiefs Saturday. So I guess it's not as crazy. It's not like they lost the first round. But they wouldn't have known this Monday or Tuesday. Was this the conversation going back and forth? Was this where they kind of looked at each other and realized we're not going to fix our differences? I don't know. Little bizarre to me. Question for the pod. As a 22-year-old who lives in Orange County, California, I've been trying to convince my fiance to move to Arizona for the last couple of months because for our generation, it's nearly impossible to buy a home here. What are some things your wife likes about Arizona that I can use to try and convince her to make the move? Uh, Specifically, Orange County, Newport Beach, pretty expensive place. I would say this: I've been alive a little bit longer than you, and my advice would be you can't force in situations like this with relationships, specifically with moving or going to a place. Have been around long enough to see relationships of other people. It's never happened to me. But when someone makes a move that they didn't want to do and the other person wants, it can create resentment and it can create a lot of problems. Even though you're not, it's not like you're moving to Arizona, I assume, because you got family. So you both would be starting from scratch. But if you want to do it and she doesn't, it's very hard to convince a human being. So, like, you can't force her to do something she doesn't want to do, even if you do have the power to do that and you succeed. It will create problems. I promise you that if she doesn't like it. So, if she's not comfortable with moving to whether it's Arizona, whether it's Texas, whether it's fucking Alaska, it will not matter. So, the only way to convince her is to kind of have her on the same page. Now, she might not want to do it as much as you, but if she is not on board and is pushing back, it's going to be a problem. Now, I think the best advice I ever got years ago was I used to go to kind of this family doctor, get, yearly physicals, and he's based out of Davis, California, Sutter Davis, and wise dude, been in the army, been around. And I was telling him my plans to move to Arizona, and he's like, "Here's what I recommend," because he had knew a lot of people over the years that made professional moves and hated it. And he's like, just go there for a couple months and rent. Just go there and feel it out. And I would say whether it's Scottsdale, whether it's Vegas, whether it's wherever you want to go, just try something out. You're 22. You guys have your whole life ahead of you. So you don't have to make any crazy commitments. I mean, unless you start making serious coin, are you going to buy a pad in Newport Beach? No, you're just not. I mean, those prices are, some of the most expensive real estate in the world. So you're not going to be able to buy a home where you probably want to buy a home. But it's like where I live in Scottsdale, it's expensive too. I mean, it's expensive any area that people are moving to. So it's that's not going to change. But I say this all the time: wherever you live, and I've lived in Fresno, I've lived in Kansas City, I've lived in Philadelphia, I've lived now in Arizona, I lived in California. Like your life's kind of your life. So you want to be comfortable. Like I think it's easier for humans that are wired like me. Like I could be pretty unfazed living most places because I'm a pretty consistent, routine oriented human. But I think sometimes people that like to socialize or people that are kind of busybodies, where they live kind of matters. And especially with a woman, if she's pushing back, it could go really, really bad. And it's not like, at your age, it's hard to put into context money stuff. It just is. I mean, you haven't been in the real world long enough. I would imagine high school and then college, like it's a lot different after 10 years in the real world and you're 30 years old and you kind of realize this is what costs, this is how much we can make, this is my earning potential. And I don't put a cap on your earning potential because there shouldn't be one, but it's if she's not on board, it would only create problems. So I don't have a great idea because when I came here, Maria already lived here. Maria, who's from Northern California, had lived here since like 2016. She had lived here 5 years before I even got here. So I didn't have to convince anything. And she told me early on, like, I'm not doing some long distance. Like, you either come here or not. I'm like, hey, honey, like, I planned on coming here before I even knew you existed. So it just worked out. There was never any, but I've known situations where people battle on it, and it can create major problems. That you got major problems at home, you got major problems in your life. So good luck. I don't have great advice there of just like I, maybe try to bring her out for vacation in the winter. Just stay somewhere cool. Just see if she enjoys it for like a week, 3 days. I don't know. What do you think of my beloved Cleveland Browns need to do to get back to the playoffs? Trade back the number two pick. Trade Miles Garrett for a haul. Where does Stefanski rank in your opinion of young offensive coaches? He refuses to give up play calling, but I have yet to see the offensive wizardry. What are your thoughts on the hard fall off for Deshaun Watson? Uh, well, I think Deshaun Watson was a fantastic playmaker. I don't think he was a great quarterback. Like when you watched him in Texans, a lot of his awesome plays were like outside the pocket. He was like the poor man's Russell Wilson. But like his best season statistically, the team was not good. I mean, didn't they go 4-12? I mean, they were horrendous. So I think he was, and then obviously everything that came off the field, he's one of the greatest walking red flags in the history of the quarterback position. So it's like he's got a lot of issues. His skills diminished. He did not work in the Stefanski under center. He wants to play in the shotgun. And then they put him in the shotgun, and it looked like he lost his fastball. And I don't know if physically he's not the same. I mean, now he'll never be the same. Multiple Achilles. I mean, he's just he's awful player. I mean, if they cut him tomorrow, he would no one will ever sign him again. Like I feel that confident, and I don't ever say that about anybody. I think the best course of action would be. I mean, are you going to draft one of these quarterbacks? Because I listen. This is no shade at you guys, but I don't think Dion would let Shador go there. Now we'll see if Cam Ward goes one. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe you just take Cam Ward and see if Stefanski can work with him. I think Stefanski's a solid coach, um, but I do think he needs his type quarterback. Like Stefanski runs his scheme. Stefanski is actually much closer like Kyle Shanahan. Likes being under center, likes running the ball, like the play action. So if you do that, great. But he doesn't. He's not as comfortable doing all the other stuff. Uh, I would think about trading Miles Garrett, and it's tough. But I think in the situation you guys are in, because of I spelled his name wrong. Because of Deshaun, he's 29 years old. I mean, if I could trade him right now for three, not you're not getting three ones, but two ones, I think that's probably the move. I think there's a decent chance he's traded. My iPhone, I think, is going. I haven't got a new iPhone in years, but I think we're almost there. I've often heard that when a rookie quarterback has success, that during the offseason, DCs will pound the tape and find ways to slow them down. I'm curious why these adjustments can't be made during the season. Is there not enough time during the week, or are there adjustments more scheme oriented that teams can make on the fly? Well, I think during the week, to really hone in on you have to have the game plan ready by Wednesday, right? It's when the players come in. Obviously, you can tweak it Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but like you got to have a pretty good idea in 48 hours. So whenever I see like, why do coaches work so long? Well, they have 2 days to get a game plan ready for the players. So you basically you work late Sunday because you're at a game, especially if you're traveling. You get to the office really early. You maybe try to get a workout, bang some breakfast, bang out the tape, grade the tape. Now, if you won, you put the tape to bed. Most coaches give players Monday and Tuesday off. Like at 49ers, Kyle Shanahan likes going over the tape at noon on Monday because he thinks you forget it within a couple days. So like players come in no matter what. So it depends on the coach. But then you have the rest of that day and then Tuesday to really develop a game plan. So when I have OTAs and I am Vic Fangio, right, or whoever the Cowboys defensive coordinator is, I can spend a week. Let's go over every first down, second down, third down, red zone, 2 minute, we can do a legit week long breakdown of Jaden Daniels, of Bo Nix, where during the season, it's like we kind of have a plan of like we attack first down, then we attack second down, then we attack third down, then we attack red zone, then we attack the run game. Like everyone kind of has, and you're just in the rhythm. Now, obviously, you're also most coaches, playoffs is different, but on like a week 7 game, you're not breaking down all 7 games. You're probably really focused on the last 4. Maybe a game or 2 more, but you don't have unlimited time. Where in the off season, you have in training camp, you have unlimited time. It's why the first game of the season, week 1, it's like they've had all off season. So they probably did some shit for you during OTAs. They probably did some stuff for you in the summer. And then they spent a chunk of training camp. When I was with the Eagles, we used to have, like during OTAs, a Giant period, a Washington period, and a Dallas period. So, like during OTAs, I'm sure Andy does certain stuff like this now with the Chiefs. That OTAs that you give looks just about your divisional opponents. You're just kind of, hey, this is what Benito likes to do. You know, this is some tells from Patrick Surtain. This is what Vance Joseph, some of his go-tos. It's just extra, extra, extra. It's just extra reps. I just think you're limited on in-season ability, time-wise. For the mailbag, this is about Mahomes, so this is before the conference games, but doesn't matter. The whole Mahomes is the go-to argument makes zero sense and is ridiculous. It seems the media is whipped to put Pat on a pedestal. Tom beat Pat twice in the playoffs, so until Pat has 6 or 7 Super Bowls, he's not even sniffing Brady. Brady was also able to win another team when he left the Hall of Fame coach, and I don't think Pat could do that with no Reed. Pat is amazing. I believe he will be the second or first best quarterback ever when it's all said and done. But to say he'll be the GOAT if he wins this year is ridiculous. Who's really saying that? You know, I mean, Brady's got 7 championships. 7. And he played till he's 45. So for any human to match that, it feels borderline impossible. I think Pat just has the best chance. Right? It's like the whole LeBron argument. Well, he's had a better career. It's like Jordan's won 6. LeBron's never winning another one. So it's like, yeah, but the career, you got 6 championships, and none of them were in a bubble. So like, people can argue all they want. No one worth their salt is ever picking LeBron over Michael Jordan. I think the same thing with Tom Brady. Like the dude, 7 championships. Hell, just 6 with the Patriots. And he got to 9 Super Bowls, right? Because he lost the Eagles. He lost, like, losing a Super Bowl is not terrible for your resume. Like Joe Montana's resume would look better if it's like he won 4, but he went to 3 others and lost. Elway's resume looks better because he's like, well, he won 2, but he also went to 3 others and lost. Like, that's good. He went to 5 Super Bowls. Like Peyton's got 2, but he also went to a couple other ones. Like that's a positive thing. I have this radical idea that the NFL should cut the season by a game. Guys, that's a radical idea because it's never happening. Remove a few preseason games and put it in a double elimination tournament for the postseason. This would allow teams like the Lions, who are in the number 1 seed, a chance at redemption, and allow games that are flukes to not change the narrative on a team. It would also double the amount of playoff games and extend the postseason. It just feels like 16 weeks of football are great, then the sports ends abruptly. Your thoughts? That's football, man. I mean, that's why this game is so much different than everyone else. It's why the NCAA tournament works. You get 60 minutes, man. You screw up in a half, it could be your season. You have a major injury the week before, you're in major trouble. You don't get a 7-game series. You don't get a 5-game series. There are no reprieves. It's the most powerful part about the games is that every game means so much, right? Why that game for the Lions is the biggest kick in the nuts of all time. It's like we could go 10 more years of being a good team and never be the 1 seed again. Obviously, they're probably never winning. it's going to be very rare that you have 15 game winners. So it's like it's rare to accomplish what they accomplished in the regular season. But then in the postseason, none of it, like your seeding matters because you get a home game. But ultimately, like it's just it's what makes the product so powerful to us, the consumer, because we know it matters. Like I don't have to watch a game one of an NBA playoff series. I don't have to watch game two of an NBA playoff series. You could argue until an elimination game, it's like, yeah, that's the NFL. Every single game is a game seven in the playoffs. That's why college football was riveting. Listen to you every single day. Agree with 98% of the things you say, but you said Jaden would start for the Eagles. But you said that only Jaden would start for the Eagles. Question. Would you really take A.J. Brown reading books or Devontae Smith over Scary Terry? My point was that if you just say, like, would Patrick Mahomes start for the Cowboys? Like, no one even hesitates, right? Or would Micah Parsons start for the Commanders? I mean, there are certain things that you don't even. Scary Terry is an excellent player. I would take AJ if I had to rank the three who I'd want on my team. AJ Brown, even though he's a little bit of a headache, he would be the first guy of the three I would want. Could you make the argument Scary Terry over Devontae Smith? Fine. I'm not going to argue all day with you, but Devontae Smith's I spelled his name wrong. He was banged up this year, but he still had 8 touchdowns. I'm just going to try to compare him to Terry McLaurin. Terry's obviously older, but let's get some stats here. And in fairness to Terry, this is the best quarterback he's ever played with, and he had 82 catches for 13 touchdowns. So obviously Devontae's had a better situation for catching balls. 95 catches, 81 catches. Yeah, if you want to take Terry McLaurin over Devontae Smith, I'm not going to argue with you. Okay, we'll get to more questions probably tomorrow. So fire in those mailbags. Add John Middlekauff. Add John Middlekauff as the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your question answered here on the show. Just wanted to get some of you guys taken care of because I know a lot of you that DM me uh, don't get your questions answered right away, and I feel bad, but it's hard to include everybody. I try. I really do. So I really appreciate everyone firing in those DMs, and I will answer a bunch of questions this week for sure.